Well, hello everyone. It is John C. Morley, serial entrepreneur and the founder of Envision Networking. I am here today with Chris McManus. Welcome to our very first Envision Networking show, Chris. Glad to have you with us.
John, appreciate the opportunity and thank you for having me as a guest. I hear great things about you.
Thank you very much. Same goes to you as well. So you've attended some of our networking events in the past, and what I really want to ask you before we talk a little about you, because this show is going to be about you today, to say thank you to you because you've actually been the winner to help bringing some of the most people to our group. And for those of you that don't know, the people that actually bring the most, we run a contest every month. And Chris had won our very first contest by bringing quite a few people to our group. So what I want to ask you, Chris, is we talk about networking and we talk about value, right? So
Mhm.
when you think about networking, what does it mean to you?
For me, I qualify it as my centers of influence, meaning the quality of the individual impacts everything. So I want to have individual buckets of people that can help grow my business. And I was taught very early on, if you aren't personally growing from the experience, if you're not professionally growing, or there isn't a profit in the process, you're not doing something right. But here's the thing, you're always personally growing. So every opportunity network is a great one.
I think that's a great statement, Chris. You know, and today I do a motivational tip for those who don't know every single day. And today my tip was Q for question.
Hmm.
And I said, we have to ask ourselves the right questions. And that's not, like, when am I going to make $1 million? When am I going to find a
Hmm.
relationship? It's not those questions. It's the questions that are, what's it going to be like when I have that relationship? What's it going to
Yeah.
be like when I have fun? What's it going to feel like? And I think it's the type of questions we ask. But what I want to ask you, Chris, is, you've been to a lot of networking events as well as I have. What do
Hmm.
you think makes our networking events different than every other event? Because there's networking events every single day, and I don't want to knock any of them, but why are
Hmm.
we so much better?
Yeah. So even from the perspective of who we want to be engaged, like anything, when you go to a typical networking event, it's kind of either a run like the Wild West, or the caliber of people just aren't there. You're so willing to give and help folks with introductions and move along their business, but they're not even willing to introduce you to either a coworker or somebody else to help you grow yours. You can't be everything for everybody, but you can have a conversation with everybody. So with our groups, everybody shares that drive, that passion to want to help each other, get to know each other. And I'm noticing it's more personal growth first, meaning everybody's going to learn some fun facts about each other, whether it's your favorite movie, favorite TV show, a book that you're reading right now. So
Hmm.
when you enter into the one-on-one groups or you're doing these networking events, you already have some collateral or information to talk about. So I like how you're not walking essentially blind to these events.
Thank you, Chris. I like the fact that we try to, I guess, ask some trivial information, which, even though it's trivial, I think it's important to get to know the person too, whether it's business,
Mhm.
whether it's dating. And I like to call this business dating, is what I like to call it, because we're kind
Yes.
of dating the people for business that we may want to have a business relationship with, right? We don't
Hmm.
want to just go in, and the caveat I always say is, when you're on a date, we don't go asking for the phone number right away. You have to see if there's a compatibility.
Yeah.
And I think in business, this is why I always say, gee, I don't want to do a one-on-one. I don't want to set up the call immediately. Why? I don't know anything about you.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes people feel that it's about, well, let me just push my product. But there's a
Mm.
great book that I've read a long time ago by Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Okay.
And I think the two important things in life are, one, everybody loves to hear the sound of their name. But something even more important is that we have to focus on what is important to the other person. Forget about me for a moment. Let's
Hmm.
think how we can help others.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we're trying to do. But I know, Chris, everyone out there always wants the Kool-Aid like today, right?
Yeah.
They just want everything, but they don't want to put the work in, right?
Hmm. Well, it's interesting you say that. A big part of really what I focus on is helping others. It doesn't matter how I can, whether you need a hot meal, a couple bucks in your pocket, a cup of coffee, or a professional referral. I want to be there to help as a resource. We talk about um, grounding ourselves, which is key. A book that I've read recently is called Ego is the Enemy, and it's talking about how you gotta keep yourself grounded. It is probably one of the most important things you can do when it pertains to networking. Now, networking as a whole is very interesting concept because it's different things to different people. It could be, hey, let's go grab a cup of coffee, do a one-on-one, get to know each other. Or it could be, hey, I'm going to introduce so and so, and the three of us are going to collaborate. So it's a warm introduction. So have really enjoyed this process because it feels like a warm introduction every single time. Envision Networking is a phenomenal platform that allows my business to grow and allows me to be surrounded by great and like-minded individuals.
And we're just getting started, Chris, as you probably know. I mean, we have a whole website coming. We have business matching coming. We have a karma system coming. So there's a lot up the pike coming. And we're not just going to be in New Jersey. We're going to be around, but we're going to have
Mhm.
online events, and we're also going to have in-person events. But what I tell people is the events aren't going to be free. So I know that's going to knock a lot of people out, but I think that's okay because some of those
Yeah.
people are what I like to call tire kickers. Like when you go to buy a car, they're
Mhm.
just kicking the tires, and they don't even have the money to buy the car, let alone the desire to buy the car.
Mhm.
And I always say, if you're worrying about the money to buy the car, if you have the desire, if you have the passion and the drive, you're going to get that car.
Oh,
I know
yeah.
because I got my first car and I started by just putting it on a screen and not knowing how the heck I was going to get it. But after college, I put my first luxury car on the screen, and 6 months later, I got that car. Don't know how I got it, but I just kept looking at it. So let's talk a little about you because that's really
Sure.
what today's spotlight is about. So you're in a
So
very specialized industry, which is actually insurance for long-term care. Am I correct?
Yeah, so I'm a financial professional, is how I clarify myself. I really specialize in the life insurance products, and then I have a lot of resources inside my firm that I lean on. My firm as a whole, we are a financial services practice, meaning everything from the life insurance, the long-term care insurance, to medical, dental, business benefits. We can help with 401ks. We can help with the IRAs. So for us, it's being able to offer the greatest service that we can to our clients. And a lot of other planners and a lot of other advisors really take to this approach of offering the best service that we can. Now, the reason everybody says, well, I see so many financial planners or advisors or professionals everywhere, what makes you different? Why are there so many of you? And the easy question to answer that is, well, why are there so many of us? Is because there's a huge need in the area for what we do, and it actually serves a purpose. And the reason for what makes me different, I have a personal connection into this field. I have a passion for what I do. Meaning, when I was in high school, my dad had passed away. My dad had no long term care or life insurance, and that really put my mom in a tight spot. Now, we weren't rich at all. We lived in a nice town, but here's the thing, my mom was a nurse, and my dad was a custodian. And in order to find a babysitter for us, me and my sister used to be dropped off at my grandma's house. And she used to be working long hours as well. So it's very important for us to realize that life insurance, long term care planning, having the best financial professional in place is really key to a successful retirement plan.
That's some great words of wisdom, Chris. And I have a question for you, and that is, when should someone sit down to have a conversation with you? Is there any particular age, or does it not really matter?
So there's two ways to look at this. One way is, yes, there are always certain life events that are important. If you have a child, it is great to talk about just reviewing your will and meeting with the retirement professional. If you buy a house, there's an opportunity there so that you can now secure your asset, not through a loan, but if something were to happen to you, you're now not leaving debt behind your family. Now, the other side of that coin is if you're 45 and older and you say, hey, look at me, I am healthy, I'm not going to be sick for another 2 years. I'm actually going to a funeral on Thursday. The gentleman was 53 years old, died in his sleep, and had a brain aneurysm. I'm sure he didn't go to bed that night planning to die. But here's the thing. Nobody plans for the worst case scenario, and nobody plans to be sick for a long time. But what you can do is plan to make sure your family's taken care of, whether it's planning for college. I'm working with a gentleman right now. He has a 1 and a 2 year old, and he says, "Hey, I want to be covered at least until I'm 22." And we're talking about programs that can protect his kids for the 5 years he's there in college. Now, the reason why we're saying 5 years, not everybody does a 2 year program, and the 4 years programs can often be challenging, especially if you've grown up through a high school system, it's taken no AP classes. So it's better to budget those expectations. Now, the other question I get asked is how much life insurance should I get? Now, that's another tricky question for the senses. There's a couple of ways to factor out these math equations. You can take your debt, you can multiply your salary, you can put an X factor on your children. But the bottom line is you need to evaluate all those buckets in the pool and put it together. So if we're going to play with round whole numbers and we're also going to pretend spouses love each other every minute of the time, you can take, $100,000 salary, multiply it by 10. And the reason why you multiply it by 10 is now that brings you A, 2 million, and B, it's going to cover your expenses for the next 10 years. Now, when we talk about income replacement, because that's really what life insurance serves as, where most people think immediately gross income, which is cool. But if you think about net income, that $1 million life insurance policy that's going to be paid out tax free to your beneficiary is actually a lot more than $1 million because you're inheriting it tax free. So that's an awesome perk. So you got to
So
what works best.
So my question is, and a lot of people ask this question, can people actually borrow from their life insurance? Is that smart or not really a smart thing to do? Because I hear a lot of people saying they want to do
Yeah.
that.
So without personally reviewing their policies and knowing exactly what there are, I don't advise yes or no on it. So for me, I have a whole life policy. So knowing how that's structured, I would pull out of it. I know people that have universal life policies, and they're structured a couple of different ways. But I don't like to say any recommendation I'm pulling out or not pulling out without seeing how it was structured first. Because sometimes you can say, hey, yeah, you know what? You can take up to 90% of that money tax free, absolutely. But if it's not growing at the rate that you would, or the dividends aren't as high as you were hoping, maybe you should let that money sit a little bit longer.
So that's good advice. Now, another question I know that I get asked a lot of times, and I'm not in the business that you do.
Mm,
People say to me, well, gee, how hard is it to get a life insurance policy? Is it an exam? Is it blood? I mean, what's involved to get a life insurance policy today? I mean, I know it
yeah.
changed when I was many years ago, but what's the policy today?
So every company has their own rules that they follow. Some are you can't go over $250,000 in a blood and medical, aka a paramedical is required. Some insurance companies will let you go all the way up to $1 million without a paramedical being required. Now here's the curveball in the life insurance process. Everything comes down to underwriting, meaning
Hmm.
I'm going to do a background check on you. I'm going to look at your medical background going
Hmm.
back at least 10 years. I'm going to look at your motor vehicle, and I have access to the consumer report as well. So here's where this becomes very interesting. If you are honest with me from the get go during the application process, and I put on your application everything that I'm going to find in the background check, your chances of getting approved are a lot higher. Now, if you don't tell me anything and you lie to me and you say I'm happy and healthy, and I find out that you actually have liver failure, or
Hmm.
you're a diabetic, or you weren't truthful about these things, or you even had COVID, these are things that can
That
either,
could be a problem, and we're not
yeah,
talking about somebody that, obviously speeding is very important because 'cause they're gonna look at
yeah,
those things, your activity, but also we're not talking, just so some of you are probably wondering, we're not talking if somebody breaks their leg or if they hurt
yeah,
their hand. We're
no,
talking about a serious medical issue in your
yeah.
body. We're not talking if you had a cavity.
So
We're talking
here's
about
a
something that's gonna affect the life of you.
Yeah, so John, here's a great example. I have a client I'm working with. She's a type 1 diabetic. She has a liver enzyme issue and she smokes cannabis. Now, here's what's wild. she was so upfront and honest about everything that was going on with her. And you know what? We're working with her. We're working with her doctors. Our underwriters actually really want to work with her and get her approved. Why? Because of the level of honesty that was there. So more honest you are with your advisor about what's going on with you medically, or if you've been involved in a hit and run, those are things that can really affect you. Now, yes, if your parents are still alive, that'll work in your favor. But the reality it just comes to honesty with your advisor.
Is it gonna come down to things like vaccines and stuff like that? Is that gonna be, something that's
So
gonna come up the pike, or is that something because they really can't control it, but I was just curious how that's gonna weigh in.
So it's interesting. I'm going through a situation right now where I have a client. She went to the hospital 2, 3 times last year because she had COVID-like symptoms. She never officially tested positive. Um, and so our underwriters really didn't like that. And so then when I went back to her, I told her really what's going on. She told me, she's like, well, I just got the vaccine and all my symptoms actually have subsided. And I went back to my underwriter, and we're actually now able to approve her because the thought of mystery has disappeared. So it's very interesting to see how this pandemic is going to unfold long term. We really don't know the long term effects of it, and our underwriters are a little worried about it.
We're hoping, though, that if people do get vaccinated, that it will, cause that herd immunity
Hmm.
that we've all been speculating about for so
Oh yeah,
long, and in theory, it sounds very good. A lot of things sound great in theory, but when you put them on paper, when you see them in the actual world, that's what we have to go on. I think that's what the underwriters go on too, the
yep,
risk analysis. They go on what actually happened. They speculate, but they make educated guesses based on the
yeah,
pool of what really happens. And
yeah.
that's what affects the price of life insurance. So people don't get the fact that it's not what you're paying today, it's what pool you're a part of.
Yeah, so a big part of it also comes down to, and I tell you, if you've got a birthday coming up within the next 60 days and you're interested in life insurance, today is the day to look at it. Because here's the thing, the underwriting process can take anywhere between 2 to 6 weeks, depending on the type of policy and depending on how quick it's moving. Now, I've seen life insurance policies take up to 3 months to get approved as well. So the reason why that's important, if you decide to apply for a life insurance policy the day after your birthday, you are now in a new rating pool and a rating class, and your premiums can go up because listen, you didn't have anything in place, you didn't even submit an application, so it's not your fault you didn't know that, but unfortunately, that's just how the system works.
Well, Chris, we have a few more minutes left, but what I want to ask you is this. So, who is an ideal client for you? I mean, obviously, anybody who needs life insurance, but is there
Yeah.
somebody that you maybe have a sweet spot to helping a little better? Just like in real
So
estate, there are people that
yeah.
do commercial and residential.
So I have 2 buckets I really focus on. One, I really love working with young families, and I'm talking about anybody who's got a kid, that either was just born or, a kid that's under 10. So this individual could be in their late 20s, mid 30s, early 40s. They could be anywhere in there. And my second bucket is I love talking to business owners because it's a great way for them to insure their business as well. Um, Oftentimes life insurance is actually the funding mechanism for a buy sell agreement, which we can talk about at a later point.
So there's a lot of details, I guess, and that's why it's good to have an advisor. Just like when you have a legal issue, it's good to talk to a lawyer because
Yeah.
we were having this conversation the other day. Nobody reads the 900-page contract, or we're joking about that, really 100.
Yeah.
But you have to read it, and the lawyer doesn't read it. You actually have to
Yeah.
read it, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Uh,
So
so
I
I
have to
think
go
that
through it. Yeah.
I think the challenge, I think there's a lot of paperwork, just like getting any kind of medical insurance or things like that. I mean, I think there's just
Mhm.
so many different things that come in from copays, non-copays. Now, are you handling medical insurance too, or is this just life insurance
So
or
so I do handle medical and dental insurance, but that's only on the group benefit side. So if you're a business owner, I'm able to work with you, or I'm able to at least review currently have. I usually, the one thing I love about the firm I'm with specifically is we have a team approach with it, meaning that we all have our specialty that we're all really good at, and we all pass quote unquote the referrals, and we all go on meetings together, which is nice. So for me,
Hmm.
I'm really strong in the life insurance bucket and category. I have a partner who's really strong in medical and dental, and I have another person who's really strong in long-term care, 401k, so on and so forth. But the important thing when you have somebody that's been doing it 20, 30 years, like my partners have, and they can pass their wisdom, their knowledge, and their strategies that have worked on them, and I can pass that on to my team as well. People that work with me, it makes for a really nice uh, atmosphere for everybody to grow in as well. So it makes learning fun, which nobody ever wants to hear.
No, I think that's a good point. And the other thing I like what you've said, Chris, is that when you're in business, sometimes there's an area that you may not handle. So I think it's
Mhm,
good to have referral partners or people that you trust, that are going to take care of the client, because there
mhm.
may be a time when you don't handle something, but you're going to, I don't want to say give them off because that's not really a great word, but
No, because we're there.
recommend them that
Yeah,
they handle this part of it. And then if they have the situation, same thing, they would refer back to you. So I think that's
yeah.
great. I mean, so I guess the long and the short is that if you don't have any type of life insurance, to definitely to reach out and talk to you. But before we
Absolutely.
say goodbye to you, the question I have for you, so a little bit about Envision. So Envision Networking was birthed quite a few months ago, and the
Mm,
concept is to envision your future. And
mhm,
that's where the whole idea of Envision Network is, that, whatever we actually create in the world happens two times. It happens once in the mind, happens once in life. So if we can
mhm,
envision the type of people we want to connect with, just like I was saying at the beginning of the call, and we imagine the type of relationships we want, even in business, we're going to
mhm,
get those relationships because our body and our mind, our actions are going to be drawn toward that. But
yeah,
before I give everybody a chance to get to know a little bit more about you and give us your contact information, what do you think we need to do? I know we're doing a lot of Envision with getting started in the last few months and doing some test groups. What can we
mhm,
do to offer more value to the people that come in? Because I think there's always room for improvement. What could we
mhm.
do that could make it better?
So it's interesting. I'm gonna piggyback on kind of my what we do in my office, and we all have a specialty, and we all are really good at something. So when I refer my client out to my network, I don't say, "Hey, this is so and so, and they sell car insurance or business insurance, or they do IT or marketing." I say, "Hey, I'm gonna refer you to one of my partners that I work closely with and that I trust on." And I think the mindset is everything when you are working with your clients and you're referring them to your partners as well. Now, the thing that we could also improve on the group a little bit on, maybe it is adding some more individuals as well so we can continue to grow and expand and we have partners. And if we add more locations, whether it's, in multiple states like we do plan to, I think that'll expedite the growth tremendously because a lot of us either can practice over state lines if we have licenses or we can travel for our business. So being able to have these professional partnerships in other states and locations are really key to any practice growing.
That's a very valuable tip, Chris. And we have questions every day, from trivia
Mhm,
to all kinds of different things. And I think that might be tomorrow's question, which
mhm.
is going to be, who's a good referral partner for you? And
Yeah,
if you haven't thought of one, what I'd like you to do for homework is to just take a piece of paper out and start thinking about it. Because if you don't know who you're going to refer business to, how should we?
yeah, it's perfect, and a lot of people have different names for it too. I've heard, "Who are your centers of influences? Where does your business come from the most? Who are your referral partners? And who do you network the most with?" Now, each one of them has a different zinger to it, but
Hmm.
at the end of the day, it's interesting. I do life insurance, but some of the best referrals I come from are my centers of influence specifically is a retired golf pro who teaches golf lessons, somebody who
Okay.
does general construction for commercial buildings, and then a title person. It's interesting. My top people should be attorneys, and that's the bucket. And I do get work from them. But my top three center of influences are those three categories. So you really can't limit yourself to, "Hey, I'm life insurance," or "I'm a financial planner and I need to talk to attorneys," because you really never know when your next deal is going to come in or where it's going to come from. That's why everybody says, go get to know your hairdresser.
I love that. And there was a tip I had the other day when we had the letter O, and it was
Mhm.
open. And what I meant by open was to be open to the way something's going to happen, whether it's a
Mhm.
relationship, whether it's a business deal, whether it's a connection, a partner. Don't expect the money to come from one way, or don't expect the solution
Yeah.
to come from where you're expecting it from, because the universe may not send it there. And if you're only looking at that one spot, hey, you're going to
Mhm.
miss all those other opportunities and say, hey, why didn't you send it to me? I was
Yeah.
sending it to you all that time. There was a famous story, I think, a while ago, actually from the Bible, where somebody came in and, he says, I'm going to wait till he saves me. And they were sending people in to help and all these different things and giving a ladder. And all says, no, I'm going to wait until he comes and saves me. And at the last moment, like at the very end, he's like, "What are you doing?" Like, "I'm drowning." He's like, "I sent this guy. I sent this guy. I sent a plumber. I sent the guy with a ladder." Well, he's like, "I was helping." He's like, "Oh." So I think you just gotta be understanding that help
Mhm.
is not gonna come from where you want it to or where you expect
Yeah.
it to come from, but just be open for it. So anyway, Chris, it was great having you on our very first show, and I just want to give you the opportunity right now to tell people how can they get in touch with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I love it when people call me. I love it when people text me. So I love talking to my clients, getting to know them. So my cell phone number is 973-223-5588. Again, that's 973-223-5588. And if you don't feel comfortable making a phone call and you want to send a private message, you're more than welcome to email me as well at Chris, Chris dot McManus, McManus, at onelegacyfg.com. And again, that's Chris dot McManus at onelegacyfg.com.
And you're also on LinkedIn and Facebook. If we have some of those people, how can they reach you there?
Yeah, absolutely. So my LinkedIn link, and it's funny. That was my personal assistant, aka one of my dogs, going crazy. So if you just ring our doorbell, that's a great way to find us. But my LinkedIn link, it's really cool. John actually taught me this trick about how to consolidate your LinkedIn user profile so that all the numbers aren't there. So mine is linkedin.com/in/MCMANUSC. So my last name and my first initial. We managed to streamline that process thanks to John's helpful tips.
Isn't that a neat trick? That's a neat little tip. And
Yeah,
you don't have to know the numbers or anything else or some wacky thing like Chris
yeah,
Manis DAC 2 or something. And so that's a great thing. But, again, if any of you do have, concerned about life insurance, what I want you to understand, it if you did reach out to Chris, I have talked to Chris a while and known him. Um, we get people here that are not looking to sell you a product or a
yeah,
service immediately. They're getting to know you. So if you do call him and you reach out to him, it's not like he's going to say, you got to get this policy tomorrow. He's going to
yeah,
provide you some insight and information. And then it's going to be up to you to pull the trigger on whether to do that or not. So I think
yeah.
advice is the right thing. So again, ladies and gentlemen, if you would like to be on Envision Networking on one of our next shows, all you need to do is invite people to our group. If you don't know about our group, you can go to Facebook, Envision, that's Envision, space networking, also on LinkedIn. By the way, we have an event coming up in June. And we're just really building, I will call it a network ecosystem of
Mhm.
connecting people in a very unique way that is about value. And I know we
Yeah.
hear value thrown around so much, Chris, in our times.
Oh yeah.
It's really something to actually provide value. So again, I do want to thank you for coming on the show with us, and I also want to thank you for winning our contest a few months ago. But this is your chance to get involved.
Hmm.
Again, it's open to everyone. We are focusing a lot on New Jersey, but we are doing some online national events, and you definitely
Hmm.
can sign up for those events and get into our groups and learn what we're doing and just
Hmm.
see how our networking is different than other places you go. And I think what you're going to find is that when people are there and provide value, the decision of whether you're going to attend is going to be a no-brainer because that's really what we're about. That's our secret sauce. We
Hmm.
provide value. We put our money where our mouth is. We provide value every single day, and I really try hard to get our members to get value out there. So we especially want to thank over 500 groups here on Facebook for allowing us to stream to them today. And also, I want to thank Princeton TV for now allowing us to be part of their network. We're very grateful. And I know you guys want to network, so we're the network that you guys want to check out. I know there's lots of networks out there. There's lots of free ones. There's some that meet every single day except Monday. But at the end of the day, it comes down to who are you going to network? Who are you going to feel comfortable networking with? And give us a try, because I think once you try us, and if you're a person that has integrity, then I know you're going to stick around. If you're somebody that's going to spam people or drip campaign people, you're going to get disappointed because that's just not how our network works. Well, Chris, once again, I want to thank you very much for being on our show today and being our first winner.
So, John, it's been an absolute pleasure. This is actually a great way to start a Monday. Typically, I start my Mondays with a coffee company, a cup of coffee. Wow, I need more of it. And a big sigh. So this is a great way to start the Monday. I also am going to thank Facebook.
We might have lost you there for a second. So if he doesn't return there in a moment, it looks like he was thanking Facebook and a few other places. But I do want to thank you, Chris, for joining us on our very first Envision Networking Live. And we'll have another guest on next month. This is a monthly program. I'm John C. Morley, the founder of Envision Networking. And we'll catch you in our networking groups, either on Facebook at Envision Networking or on LinkedIn, Envision Networking. And come and find out what true networking is about. It's not about pushing. It's not about hard selling. It's not about multiple drip campaigns. It's about getting to know one another.